the Sabbath. The things that God intended for the Sabbath to do for them were not happening. And God made it clear how upset he was. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 13, the King James reads, "Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting." When you folk come together, what I intended to happen is not happening. And because of that, I am sick and tired of your coming together. Because you're not fulfilling the purpose I had in mind. You come together, and you worship, and you fellowship, and when you leave, you're no different. In terms of your relationships with each other, it goes on to say, what you really need to do is take care of the needs of others. See to the widows and the orphans. When you leave here, having come to be reminded of my goodness to you, go out there and display my goodness to others. Amen. If it's not going to serve that purpose, don't even show your face up here. Sounds sharp, but that's what God is saying. If we simply observe the Sabbath as a ritual which has become a part of our being and we can hardly escape it, we are missing the point. We have to go from observation to experience, where we experience God on the Sabbath. Doesn't mean that we can't experience Him during the rest of the week. No, it does not mean that. But because God has taken time off on the Sabbath to fill the Sabbath with Himself, and we can take time off from those other activities, it allows for a closer interaction between us and God on the Sabbath, beyond what is practical during the rest of the week. And yet, I would hasten to point out, it is only as we are interacting with our God on a daily basis, drawing into a close relationship with Him, gratitude and thankfulness and commitment during the week, that the Sabbath can really become that high point in our experience. If we come here on Sabbath with nothing that was built up during the course of the week, the climax that this is intended to be will be an anticlimax. Are you hearing me? Amen. What God wants to do for us on the Sabbath, when He has taken Himself away from His creative activities, and He wants us to take ourselves away from the regular things we have been doing, is a focus and a concentration on what has been happening all through the week. Sabbath observation does not begin when the sun sets. From the set of sun on Saturday night until the set of sun on Friday night, there's an extended spiritual foreplay between us and God that climaxes on what happens on the Sabbath. So we can't celebrate the Sabbath the way that we ought to. We can't experience it the way we ought to unless we have been doing that building up all through the week. Amen. All right. And I want us to understand that what makes the Sabbath special is not just the fact that we have stopped doing the other things, but that we're allowing God to do certain things for us now. Amen. Traditionally, again, as Seventh-day Adventists, we can give you a catalog of the things you should not do on the Sabbath. But I ask for a list of things you should do, and we scratch our head a little bit. You show whether we come to church and all that. My point is, we have missed out on so much of what God intends the Sabbath to be, because we look at it as a time when you can't do this and you can't do that and you shouldn't do that. The point is, what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to celebrate the fact that the God who created the universe created you. Yeah. And invite you to celebrate with Him the creation of the universe and His own work of creation in your life as an individual. Amen. So that every Sabbath reminds you of God's goodness in your own life, reminds you of what God has done for you, and reminds you of what God still needs to do in you so that you can cooperate with Him more throughout the week, but especially on Sabbath, so that His complete work can be done in you. So in Isaiah 1:13, Isaiah shows the people observing the Sabbath, but in a way that made God want to vomit. But in chapter 58, verses 13 and 14, he tells us what God really wants. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a what? A delight. Not, oh, that's a day when I can't do this and can't do that. Now, let me just have a sidebar here regarding our children. If we want our children to learn to value and appreciate the Sabbath, it cannot be the day when they can't do all the fun things that they used to do during the week. Nobody was going to look forward to that with joy. Create some kind of activity you do only on Sabbath, so they look forward to having that special activity. This deserves far more than that, but just a word to the wise. If Sabbath is a day when I can't do the things I really enjoy doing, I hate when the Sabbath comes. We have got to help our children to learn to look forward to the Sabbath, but as long as it continues to be a day where they don't do this and don't do that, rather than the one opportunity you now have during the week to do this and to do that, we're going to grow up a generation of young people who have no love for the Sabbath, because Sabbath is a killjoy rather than a rich and enlivening experience. So here we're being told what we ought to do. And the Lord promises in verse 14, He will do some wonderful things for us if we have allowed ourselves to celebrate and experience the Sabbath with Him. Since I will be presenting part 2 here, let me just share something with you from another sermon I presented, entitled From Bethel to Peniel. In that message I made the point that when Jacob was traveling away, and he had that special dream that night. Do you remember the dream of the ladder from earth to heaven and so on? He said, I realize God is in this place. So it's called Bethel, house of God. But that experience did not change Brother Joe. He was still a crook. He would still cheat at the drop of a hat. He would do everything under the sun to swindle you. Some of the things he did don't make Madoff look all that bad. And this was after the Bethel experience.